how can we have clarity on the road from where we are now to where we want to get to, and that sustainable order book.
So, Gillian, you've been speaking at All Energy on that offshore wind panel about some of the challenges that Scottish wind projects are, encountering, but the opportunities as well. Do you mind giving us a quick summary of what your takeaways from that panel were?
Sure, no problem. So I think it's absolutely right to recognise the significant headwinds that projects in Scotland in particular are facing. That said, we absolutely need to remain eyes on the main objective, which is providing a clean energy security, energy supply, but more importantly, certainly for Crown Estate Scotland, is that economic and social value. What does this new industry and the opportunity it brings mean for the people of Scotland? And that's the bit that I believe that we need to get real clarity on. And the outputs are understood. It's the journey to get there which is providing some challenge at the moment. That's fair to say.
Yeah, you were speaking about supply chain engagement on the panel, and I think that's something that's a key part of the delivering the value from offshore wind, isn't it? We hear about job creation, but really where the main thrust of investment goes is supply chain in these projects. So do we see enough local content? I know we've seen laws and legislation put in place by the Labour government to incentivise it, but is that enough? Are we seeing enough Scottish firms engaged in Scottish wind farms?
So what we are seeing is a real commitment from the developers in industry in engaging with the supply chain and looking at seeing how you move that engagement to actual business investment and growth opportunity. That's a key critical point. And there are incentives. I've been around offshore wind for over a decade now, and I have never seen such alignment around policies and financial interventions. There still is an element of risk associated with projects moving, and we've just touched on the challenges that they face. So you absolutely need to have an order book, line of sight, when the contracts are coming forward. What we're doing at Crown Estate Scotland now, people will be familiar with the supply chain statements that came in the early stages. That flows all the way through the development phase of these projects. We've just had the updates received for the majority of the ScotWind projects. We're working through the evaluation of that now. What we have got from that process now, however, is an additional level of detail. So some real clarity around key suppliers, growth opportunities, milestone delivery dates, all of the kind of data that underpins investments and gives the supply chain the confidence to invest and move forward. And we will be able to go public with a dashboard which will allow companies and stakeholders to really scrutinise that data and actually what that starts to say. The important point about all of this is about gigawatts and capacity in the water generating. How can we have clarity on the road from where we are now to where we want to get to, and that sustainable order book, which is important for supply chain companies.
Yeah, I think it's important to contextualise this as well, because as we say, there are challenges for wind farms in Scotland. I mean, we've seen a number of projects scrapped. We've seen Shell step away from one, BP Duranex, Ocean Winds, west of Orkney. Ultimately, all of these leases are then handed back to you as the landlord for Scottish Waters. What does that mean for you, and what's the process beyond that?
Yeah, so it's right to recognise at the outset, and we did talk about this earlier, around the scale of what ScotWind has delivered. I mean, to put in a pipeline of up to 40 gigawatts, that's substantial, on a global scale. We've already recognised it is normal within leasing rounds to have attrition, and that's what we're seeing here, and we're seeing the challenges being faced by projects evolving in sites coming back to us. So what we need to do now is we will await the adoption of the new sectoral marine plan. We are a plan-led organisation, so all our leasing is plan-led, and so we will await for that to come through, which latest indications are that it will be throughout 2026. So we will then make an assessment on the commercial viability of sites going forward. So we have a number of options that we can consider, and we want to do it in a sustainable and responsible way. So we will evaluate the sites, we will recognise the evidence that was provided to us as to why the sites came back, and we will make our next steps known after that.
But when it comes to that natural attrition, how much of it is natural and how much of it is the policy being set around offshore wind projects? Transmission charges, obviously the elephant in the room in this case. Is that something that Crown Estate Scotland will try to engage with Westminster government about to change if it is putting so many leases on hold or even scrapping sort of the viability of handing them back out?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of key roles. We are, as you say, we are the landlord, we are the responsible steward of the seabed. We also have a really key role in this enabling and coordination function, and that's where we really lean into that type of activity. So that's stakeholder engagement and really making sure that the intelligence and the data that we receive is advocated at both a UK and a Scottish Government level. And we engage very closely, very regularly with all the regular stakeholders that you would expect. It's also important to recognise West of Orkney have been public in their position. They're paused. They've not walked away. They were our front runner for ScotWind. They were first to receive consent. The amount of investment and development activity in that project will be so significant. And I think actually just recognising that's not a site that has come back, but they are waiting on that route to market, the clarity around continuous charging, which is absolutely a significant issue for these projects, particularly in the north of Scotland.
And, I'm going to be really cheeky and ask one quick question. You said, you spoke about sort of the evidence-based report that's going to be coming back and what's going to happen with the leasing space that you've got available. Is there a potential for a cheeky wee offshore wind leasing round by the end of the year in Scotland?
So I
think that's an answer.
We will have to wait for the SMP to come through. I mean, what I would say is, and this is genuine, that we are focused on delivering the ScotWind and Intog projects that we have. There is a process already in place for how you can handle sites that are handed back. So we don't need to necessarily go out with a full new leasing round. There will be opportunity to look at that in a slightly different way, and we have policy and structure that can enable that to happen.